And now I'm very happy to introduce Jörg Mayer-Ries to you. He's the head of Division Sustainable Development and Citizen Participation of the Federal Ministry of the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. It's an interesting combination. So now your 7 minutes and then we go join on the panel.
Yeah. Thank you very much also for the invitation. Welcome to this wonderful place. I have to adjust a little bit. I hope this is, everybody can hear me okay. I will try to speak fast because I would like to bring something over, but 7 minutes is not a long time. I'm working since 11 years in the Environmental Ministry. Formerly, I was working at the university, at a private company, consultation company, and also a little bit in the political education. So I'd like to talk about transformation towards sustainability. I need my glasses. Sorry, I'm also from the elder generation. But I think children, the idea of children is a very important idea to make sustainability work. And so I very much appreciate the 2 lectures before. I would like to make 3 chapters. The one is about to say, again, what has been said already. We are talking about the core of business also. We are talking about business case. We're talking about economy if we talk about sustainability and transformation. We also talk in the second part about a UN agenda, which is mostly a political agenda, but it's relevant for all parts of society, also for business, also for every citizen in every part of the world. I would like to draw some conclusions out of this policy making, and then the last point is a more general one about cooperation of all the sectors also invited here, and also to ask some basic questions. So, sustainable development, what are we talking about? This is, first of all, this is not something political, this is some happening real effects. It has to do a lot with the so-called great acceleration, which happened since the 50s of the last century. I will come to that. This is an enormous acceleration of all our metabolistic processes we have on the globe, and which is leading to a very unsustainable development worldwide. Second thing which we are talking about is that we are at the frontier from the Holocene to the so-called Anthropocene. Don't know whether you have heard this expression. Is as a geological debate about whether mankind is now in the phase of completely shaping this planet since about also the 50s in the last century. So these are linked concepts. Third one is about, we are talking not only about innovation, of course, we are talking about innovation not only in a technical sense, in an organizational sense, social sense, but we are mostly also talking about real transformation. The UN Agenda 2030 is called a transformative agenda. And this is a very radical concept for policy, to talk about transformation. The last one we had was in the socialist countries, and not everybody is glad with this expression. And we have non-linear ruptures. We have real structural changes. We have tipping points, as we call it in the environmental field, and we have to deal with that. And digitization, which was already mentioned, is also one of these ruptures we have to deal with if we talk about sustainable development. The last one is that, after all, at the end of the day, nor policy, neither science knows everything about the world, and we have to deal with a lot of conflicts, trade-offs in the SDGs, and we have to deal with a lot of non-knowledge, of non-manageable things we have, especially in the natural sphere. So, coming back to the great acceleration, just as a picture, this is the development of our so-called national products in the world. And this is since the 50s, you see these accelerating dynamics. As a signal for that, you can take the first open McDonald's affiliation in US in 1950. This is from 1950. And you also see not only it's about nutrition, it's also about mobility. To drive in and get just your food from the car without stepping out. And it's not only about meat, the problem of meat. This is the landscape where we produce vegetables and flowers. So this is Anthropocene. Yeah? This is in southern Spain. This is not far away. So this means the Anthropocenic idea. And if you look to other indicators in the world about land use, about resource use, about nitrogen, about mobility, in the environmental sector and also in the social economic sector, everywhere you have these curves which indicate that in the last 50, 60 years, we are in another era. And if we follow this era, we will destroy this planet in the next 50 or 100 years. So this is something we, from the Environmental Ministry, this is our basis of working and our motivation. If you look to the, to the international, to the national incomes and what is the prognosis, you see that we are not calming down, that we are not doing less quantity and more quality. We are just raising about the next 2 times more of GDP. And this has, of course, also an effect of the resources in the soils all over the world. We have a doubling in the next years to come. And the question is, how many planets do we have? We have just one planet. And we have already big social conflicts and military conflicts around this question. And if you look to climate, which is the most prominent idea, you see that from a long path of normally constant temperatures on the planet, we are now going up. And what will happen if we have 2 or 3 or 4 degrees more? You remember perhaps the summer last year. This was one indicator what will happen. So in the scientific community for environmental questions, and I'm a little bit environmentally biased, of course, we have around 9 so-called tipping points, 9 planetary boundaries, systems which we don't know what they will behave when they reach these tipping points. At least there will be some chaotic situation, and every of these endangered systems will influence the other system. So if we don't have a real good biodiversity system, this will influence climate and the other way around. And one of the biggest problems, which nobody knows about, is the nitrogen tipping point. And Germany has a very bad, how you call that in English, I don't know, performance in nitrogen policy, in nitrogen questions. So this is about unsustainable development, and what we do need between good humanitarian and social and children and others conditions in the center of this circle, and the tipping points, the ecological tipping points around it, is a green sphere where we can make business and where we can make social life and where we can make individual consumption and whatever, and leisure time. So this is the task for national economies, for global economy, and also for every company, to find out how we can work within these boundaries, limits, or you can also take it as an innovation space. So, but I think this innovation space is somehow not free. It's not free to us to shape it completely. So this is end of part 1. We are talking, insofar we are talking really about new mental maps, new consumption maps we need, because we have to think on connectedness, on resilience of our systems. I can't go into that, but something of a new definition of what means well-being from the individual up to the national level. We need to think about transformations which are sustainable and which lead to sustainability. So this is a very challenging issue. This is more than only technologies. It's about co-creation of different individuals, different sectors in the society, and we need something like a better measurement of productivity. What means really productivity? This is a big question. We only look on flows, capital flows. We never look on stocks. We don't keep our capital right. We are destroying our capital. And this is the human capital, the natural capital, and at the moment even the European and social capital. So the question is how to measure that in a better way. And of course, we have to talk about financial markets, not only on product markets. We have to talk about international value chains, how to shape them, and all these things. So this is part 1. Part 2, well, in 2050, we got by the UN debate a so-called UN Agenda 2030 to define 17 goals and 5 planetary principles or UN global principles to give a vision of the world which we should have and which we would like to have in 2030 and beyond. And which is important for us from the Ministry and from policy is to see that this is not just one UN document. It is something like the document of the UN after the Second World War defining human rights and cooperation in the world. This is the document who should lead every sector, every person, every institution, every process in the world to say, well, we have to relate ourselves towards this agenda. This is the ambition. It's formulating a vision, and it's formulating the responsibility for all of us to transform, even the industrialized countries. I can't go into that anymore, but I think it's not only a development thing, it's about industrialized countries. It's of course not about environment, it's about every policy you do have. Germany tried to introduce this agenda in the new revised form of its sustainability strategy, which I have the most recent form here with me. I have some copies with me. We try to transform that in German policy, and this means a lot of integration work, integration between different levels of policy, from cities up to the national government, up to EU, up to UN. This means also integrating different sectors, business and policy and so on and so forth. And also the question linking short-term and long-term things. So especially business question, how to link my year-to-year profit maximization scheme with a long-term children-adjusted innovation and investment scheme. And we do measure our success or our failure very precisely along the 17 goals in Germany with a statistical office. This is the most published publication of the statistical office in Germany. Normally nobody reads that so much, but this is a book which a lot of people read. It is as robust, statistically scientific, robust as possible. And it shows, and this is a huge political debate between the ministries and the policy parties, especially around the indicators, why did we fail and what is the reason for success in this and that field. The balance is more or less very mixed. And the biggest problem is, let me skip that. The biggest problems is how to make this UN agenda really to a policy frame for every ministry, which is not the case, for every industrial branch, which is not the case. Some exceptions. Every company and every other actors and consumers. The second is how can we really make accountable every ministry to reach these goals? Politicians normally don't like this, to get every day and every year tested by numbers. What means transformation and to make that acceptable in society? What means, this is the most challenging in my view, how to link our perhaps even national success to make it to success for the globe. So not shifting our external effects just to India and to China and to Africa, being resource efficient in a very good way in Germany, but not resource efficient in a global sphere. So this is not possible anymore. So this is very problematic and very challenging. And yeah, how to take in all these actors in society. So last words. Oh, sorry. To take in all the civil society and the whole society, the question is really how to make a design for such a policy which is integrating also society. We have a lot of innovations, a lot of niche startups doing very good things, but what we are missing is the scaling up of these things, and we don't know how to do that exactly. we have to make societal learning in universities, in high schools, in schools. Sustainability is seen as something environmental. This is not the case. We are talking really about society, a vision for society, how to put in that into curricula. These are the questions of how to make digitization and financing markets sustainable, a big issue. And the last one is we have a big crisis of democracy. And even if we measure all these things, if every car driver gets some tokens for his good behavior, this means what does that mean for privacy? And how is a democracy reacting on a sustainability policy which is very much transformational, very much top-down, so challenging? So this is a big question. What we need, I think, is a lot of communication around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.